Well, it's been a lively past 24 hours across UK and Ireland with power cuts, 90 plus mile per hour gusts, and we are going to continue to see that unsettled conditions through the course of today, Saturday, 7th of December. Thanks for clicking on to the European Outlook for today. Certainly, it is a busy time here on the channel and weather-wise, so now is the time to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Global Weather Report live tomorrow, 4 p.m. I hope you can join me for that. I'll leave a link in the description below today's video. So let's get right to it. We have seen wind gusts in excess of 90 miles per hour. A couple of spots in Wales recording 90, 92, 93 miles per hour at Capel Curig Saws and Aberdaron. And we've also seen close to 90 miles per hour in the southwest of the UK and over higher terrain across other areas of the British Isles as well. It is all thanks to this tight pressure gradient on the backside of Storm Dara that is actually causing the biggest problems, because if you look at the latest pressure gradient of the Meteoseal website, you can see here that we've got a 1044 millibar high to the southwest of Dara. Dara now seeing pressure rising gradually, and that means we are starting to see the system weaken as it pulls east. But it was undergoing a slow strengthening process as it crossed over Ireland and the central UK during the course of the last 12 hours or so. Strong winds ahead of it, but even stronger winds on the backside of the system as that pressure gradient increased. Pressure building to the west of the UK and Ireland, and that is going to be our weather maker through the rest of this weekend and into the majority of next week. Actually, we're going to see high pressure building in. We do have a little push of cold air within the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere that is going to drop southwestwards underneath that building high pressure. But generally speaking, it is a clear, cold, high pressure system. The actual air mass itself is not massively cold, but with a little bit of snow cover on the ground across northern areas of the UK, the Met model is indicating some very low numbers to start the new working week. We'll look at that in just a second, but if we play through the animation for the last 24 hours, you can see the evolution. Here comes Storm Dara. It moved across the northern side of the Republic of Ireland, across Northern Ireland, far south Scotland, northern portions of England, and obviously strong, milder air lifting northwards ahead of the system. We seen strong gusty winds, but it was once that centre moved through, winds dropped off underneath the centre, but then they really ramped up as the centre moved to the east, and we've seen the even stronger backside winds. But you can see here the pressure building through the upper 1030s into the low 1040s and millibars, and it's like I said, that gradient increased, and therefore we've seen the strongest of the winds on the backside. Looking at the temperature profile over the last 24 hours as well, you can see the milder air lifting northwards ahead of the system, 10s, 12s across UK and Ireland as well, even into the southeast of the UK. And then once that system now moved into the North Sea, you can see the temperatures dropping behind the system, but we don't have a particularly cold air mass, so therefore we're not seeing a particularly significant drop. Yes, it's feeling cold, especially in that northerly wind once those winds did kick in, but nonetheless, in terms of wind speeds, you can see here this is in kilometers per hour, and you can see that we still have very strong winds. The red warning has been downgraded to an amber warning for the west coast of Wales, but nonetheless we're still seeing very lively gusts indeed, 134 kilometers per hour at the moment here at Aberporth. But yeah, it has been a very lively night. Lots of power cuts, especially across Northern Ireland, I believe, but elsewhere we have seen significant power loss also. But you can see as we play through this animation, the strong winds initially ahead of the system spread this way across Ireland and the UK, and then the backside winds, we're seeing them howl and continue to do so. A lot less in the way of wind at the moment across East Anglia and Eastern England. closest to the centre of low pressure. But yeah, it has been a very fascinating past 24 or 48 hours or so across the UK. Let's have a look and see what the modelling is suggesting here real quick. This, by the way, is the temperatures expected by the Met model by the time we reach 09Z Monday morning. High pressure builds over the top of Scotland with a little touch of snow cover on the ground and with shelter. The models are suggesting minus 15 Celsius. This is the lowest numbers, I believe, of the season so far, albeit we're still quite early. Still got some reasonable cold temperatures, minus 5s in inland parts of Western Ireland, as well as Northern Ireland. We've got a minus 6 in and around the Castle Derg area, but the less cold, especially further east over Ireland, as well as that, the further south you go over England and Wales, temperatures are in mid-single figures. A very stark contrast, actually, if you notice, across the UK with this particular model. Looking at the winds, we'll look at the next few days in a second, but the latest projection of the Met model in terms of mean winds through the course of Saturday, you can see here that we still have very powerful winds, mean winds in excess of 50, even 60 miles per hour through the North Channel, as well as across the Irish Sea coast here. So we've still got very, very gusty conditions, very light in the way of wind, nearest that centre of low pressure, if you notice. And then as that system continues to pull not only east but also south, because the high is toppling its way in over the top of the UK, we're actually forcing Storm Dara to go southwards instead of directly east into the near continent. But again, a windy day across the majority of the UK as we progress through the course of today and even into tomorrow. Is going to be a blustery day. But notice here that as we start to get to the latter half of tomorrow, winds really start to drop off across the north as the high builds over top, and then that allows some pretty strong radiational cooling to take place Sunday night into Monday morning. Looking at the maximum gusts through the remainder of today, and we're still talking about lively winds, as was shown on the Meteoseal site just a second ago. So we can play through here. This is by the time we reach 17Z. Still got maximum gusts in excess of 70 miles per hour. Still hurricane force winds through the Irish Sea here. So yeah, those winds are not going to drop off particularly quickly over the open water and exposed coasts through the course of today. And even as we progress through the course of tonight, we've still got the 50, 60 mile per hour gusts over northern areas and also progressing further south. Widespread 40 to 60 mile per hour winds pretty much north to south coast of the UK here. And then we're going to start to pick up on some stronger gusts as that centre pulls away from the coast. We're going to see some 50, 60 mile per hour gusts, close to 70 mile per hour, anywhere from the from Yorkshire all the way down towards the Wash during the course of tonight. So continue to play it through. You can see here that the winds gradually start to decrease as we progress through the course of tomorrow, and then they really start to drop off to pretty light levels by the time we reach early hours of Monday morning. Looking at the pressure, this is the mean sea level pressure at the moment, and you can see that we've got the area of low pressure. The central pressure now into the 980s in millibars. I think it bottomed out around 977 millibars, which there was pretty much cross-model agreement that that would be the depth of the low as it peaked in intensity. And you can see here that there's the Dara pulling away from the UK, and then heights start to rise through the remainder of tonight. We've got pressure already up at 924, 926 millibars by the time we reach midnight tonight here. So we're seeing a pretty quick rise in pressure. But again, even though we've got reasonably high pressure now, 1034 millibars, for example, in the west coast of Scotland, still got strong winds because of that tight gradient in pressure. But then as we move into the day on latter half of Sunday into Monday morning, we've got a very nice, strong area of high pressure centred probably over northern areas of Scotland at least 1042 millibars, possibly even slightly stronger than that. So if we look at the precipitation forecast over the next 24, 48 hours of the Met Model site, you can see here, just bear with me until I get to the right chart. So back to early this morning, and there was, I would say, about 200, 250 metres above sea level across northern areas. I drove the typical A9 route between Glasgow and Inverness last night over the Dromoctor summit, near blizzard conditions at times, but below that level, really there was very little to speak about. So the Sloch summit, Dromoctor Pass, the two highest points on the A9, certainly very snowy conditions, gusty winds, nasty travel, icy as well. I noticed the gauge on the truck was showing that the wheels were spinning a couple of times, especially as I was climbing the hill at the Dromoctor summit, for example. But generally speaking, down at anywhere below the 200 metre level, there was literally nothing to speak about. So that was obviously good news for myself. And obviously, there's other parts of Highland Scotland that has seen fairly significant amounts of snow. I know across at the Braemar there has been some decent amounts of snow. But you can see here the precipitation, decent amount of rainfall over the last 24 hours or so here in the north of Scotland. Significant totals. I think today was 16 plus millimetres of rain. Yesterday was about 14 to 16 millimetres as well. That is the wettest back-to-back days here at my site for a couple of months at least anyway. But you can see here the moisture then pulling away as the system pulls away, and then we're left with a few northerly showers blowing in on that northerly flow. So you can see here as we play through, very little to speak about with regards to moisture. We do have a northeasterly flow starting to develop, so we may start to pick up on a few showers coming in off the North Sea for parts of East Anglia and Eastern England, but these are not necessarily going to be particularly wintry. Yes, we've got some slightly colder air running underneath the high, but nonetheless, it is not an overly cold environment in terms of producing snowfall. Looking at the snow depth chart of the Met Office model here, and this is how it was looking according to the model at the 04Z this morning, and we'll play through the next several hours. You notice here that there is no increase in snow cover across much of the UK, never mind Scotland. So play it right through, and then all the way through the course of next week, there is literally no snow to speak about. Yes, it's going to be clear, it's going to be calm, and underneath that high, chilly days and cold nights is going to be the theme. But I think, personally speaking, the MJO is in a warm phase, and therefore, throughout the course of this work week, I've been thinking, how much is this cold spell projected to be? How much merit is it going to actually have? Because if we play through, we do have a below average upcoming work week. This is the next 5 days according to the GFS ensemble. So you can see here actually Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Wales, southwestern UK is actually colder than average through the next 5 days. Eastern areas of the UK is actually slightly warmer than average, and that's with a northeasterly wind. So as we go through the next 6 to 10 days, below average, but not exceptionally so. And then in the 11 to 15 day, again, below average. But look at Europe. And that's usually the telltale sign that this isn't a particularly cold setup. It's just that we've got high pressure, 1040 plus millibars at this time of the year, generally produces colder than average temperatures. But we're in December, the angle of the sun is pretty much at its lowest, and therefore you're going to struggle to see temperatures rising much. So looking at the upper setup of the model here for the next 5 days, looking like this here. So we've got a very strong area of high pressure across the top of Europe, including the UK, Ireland, Scandinavia. We've got this trough centered over Central and Southern Europe. We've got a lot more moisture, so we've got more rainfall to speak about across areas that don't need it. That's the upcoming 5 days. This is the 6 to 10. So you've got that trough over Iberia, below average temperatures for sure across Spain, Portugal, France, even the southern UK. We've got this trough. But generally speaking, this is quite a blocky look, if you notice. But if you look at the latest of the ECMWF with regards to the Manjulian oscillation, we're now in phases 5. These are warm phases, so therefore it makes sense. And we're expecting to go into phase 6. Well, phase 6 tends to promote high pressure over the UK and over the near continent. But look at this, we're expecting over the next 5, 10, 15 days or so that rotation, albeit we're starting to weaken the amplitude of the MJO. So the weaker the amplitude, the less influence it tends to have on the mid to high latitude pattern. But we are creeping steadily into the colder phases once again, which is quite interesting. We've seen that rotation. We've seen the result of Arctic air into the UK, Western Europe pattern. We've seen some of the coldest nights since 2010. We've seen some of the most significant November snow since 2010 as well, albeit doesn't compare to 2010 by any chance, where we've seen a pretty much a UK-wide snow cover. But nonetheless, I projected the end of October, the MJO phase 7 into 8, albeit a lot more amplified than we currently have, did produce the Arctic air that I expected. So let's watch what happens as we go forward. But certainly this blocky pattern, this northerly block setup that we've got at the moment here makes sense given that we're going through phases 5 into phases 6. And it'll be interesting to see as we move further forward exactly how this pattern is going to evolve. Very, very quickly, we're going to look at the mean zonal winds according to the ECMWF. We're going from record strong at the moment down below average by the time we reach, the 20th, 22nd, 23rd of December. We're seeing this weakening of the mean zonal winds surrounding the stratospheric polar vortex. I'm asking the question, why is that the case? It's most likely because the model's seeing blocking within the high latitudes to create that friction within the stratospheric circulation. Looking at the GFS model for the MJO, you can see that we're going through phases 5 into phases 6 here. Again, not overly cold, but nonetheless, it is an interesting rotation back towards the colder phases. I want to very quickly also talk about the lower portions of the stratosphere, because this is quite important when it comes to the reflection to the 500 millibar pattern. The 500 millibar pattern is generally the ceiling, around 18,000 feet, the ceiling of where our weather resides within the lowest 20,000 feet of the atmosphere. Generally speaking, I think there's a pretty nice reflection between 50 millibars, which is the lower portions of the stratosphere. There tends to be a nice reflection between this and the 500 millibar pattern going forward. And you can see here that we've got quite a lot of low heights over Greenland, the Arctic region. That tends to promote lower pressure over this region, and that is something that I would think would lean towards a milder setup underneath. So let's play through. This is the 50 millibar level, as can be seen here. Let's skip out to a week from now. Remember, there is always somewhat of a lag. Look at this here. We're actually strengthening the low heights over to the north of the UK and Ireland here. We're also building heights across northern portions of North America. My concern with this setup is a bit of a 2013-14 situation developing. Positive heights extending from Eastern Asia across the top into northern North America. Is there a cross-polar flow showing up here? Arctic air in the eastern side of North America. And with that negative to the north of the UK and Ireland, my concern would be that what we're seeing at the moment here with a stronger jet across the Atlantic, storms into the UK and Ireland, this could suggest towards the back half of December that we may have a bit more of a continuation of what we're seeing at the moment here with a stronger jet, colder into North America, and then strengthening the jet That then feeds across the Atlantic and brings areas of low pressure into our part of the world. So it's going to be a very interesting watch as we move towards the back half of December, approaching the Christmas New Year period. What exactly are we going to see? This is out to 240 hours, which is 10 days from now. Again, there's no real signal for any blocking within the high latitudes, which is quite interesting given the fact that I showed you the 10 millibar level showing quite a strong weakening of the PV, even all the way out to 384 hours. This is all the way to the end of December, and we're seeing a lot of higher pressure within the 50 millibar level over the North Pacific here. This really screams out to me cross-polar flow when you've got a low over the Arctic, you've got a high over the North Pacific, up towards northwestern North America, Northeast Asia. You follow almost in between the high and the low, and that generally tends to be where your flow is, and that is a very cross-polar look over extended from Siberia across to the top into North America. My real concern would be that this is going to create a bit of a 2013-14 with stronger temperature gradient over eastern USA, strengthening the Atlantic jet and firing areas of low pressure into our part of the world. That is the slight concern. I could be wrong. Hopefully I am. But that is the slight concern going forward. Latest of the Arctic Oscillation Index. This is a GFS ensemble. We are neutral with the AO at the moment, but it is projected to remain fairly negative as we go through the next week to 10 days. Looking at the North Atlantic Oscillation, it too is generally neutral. It's going back into firm negative territory. Then it recovers back towards neutral as we move towards the second half of the month. So certainly very interesting things going on at the moment here. Certainly, if you're enjoying the content, please stick around. The live stream, obviously, tomorrow will be looking at Dara in more detail and other global news stories that have been taking place over the last 24 hours or so. Not 24 hours, but the last 7 days or so. I'll get there in the end. But I just want to see here if there's anything else to show you. Let's have a quick look at the GFS overview chart here real quick, and we'll see just what the model's projecting over the next several days here. So let's look at the bigger picture. So you can see here, there's that area of high pressure, kind of pushing Dara both east and north. You've got high pressure surrounding Dara really. So there's that high starting to topple its way in over the top of the UK, but we've got a high pressure over Scandinavia as well as over Central and Eastern Europe here. But it's as the high then kind of pushes down on the circulation, it's forcing Dara, as it's weakening, to move into northern areas of France. We've got an area of low pressure bringing all sorts of moisture across the Mediterranean basin, so more heavy rainfall here. Play through, there's that high then starting to settle in. We've got the easterly flow here, but it's not an overly cold flow. Yes, it's going to feel probably quite bitter in that easterly, northeasterly airflow here, but we've got a pretty strong high set up across anywhere from the Azores all the way to Scandinavia. If we put on the 850s here, you can see what type of air mass we're talking about with regards to this setup here. So this is a 09 UTC on Monday. You can see here, moderate cold. So again, models kind of pulling back on that really cold theme through the course of next week. And I've always been a little bit pessimistic of how cold this week was going to be based on the fact that we're in that warm MJO phase. We're in that strengthening of the polar vortex setup at the moment. Notice here underneath the actual high itself, we're not massively cold. The coldest air is actually across southern UK as that the flow comes in from the northeast. But continue to play through here. You notice as we move through the course of next week, chilly days, cold nights. It's going to be pretty much the story through the course of next week here. Remember, minus 14, minus 15 seen by the Met Office model. I think that may be overdone a little bit. I think we may have a run at double digits below freezing, but generally I'm a little bit unsure about just how cold it's going to be. Central areas of Europe, notice here that we've got the relatively chilly air over the heart of Europe. Then we'll play through, we've got some chilly air getting drawn in underneath that high over the UK and Ireland. So again, chilly-ish, but not mega cold. That's the take home from this. And then you notice we kind of flirt with something colder. More areas of low pressure kind of move in, and it kind of just moves the warm and mild air masses around. This is not an overly locked-in cold pattern by any stretch. And the reasons for that is simple. The MJO is not in the favourable phases for particularly cold conditions at this moment in time. So there you go. I think I've spoken long enough today. Like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully see you tomorrow with the live stream 4 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye for now.